In this video, we dive into the powerful ripple effect of a small gesture, when David Harper, an ordinary man running a corner store, stood up for a veteran in need. Little did he know, he was about to awaken a long-lost hero and change his life forever. Before we get into this powerful story, let us know where you're watching from. If you're moved by tales of kindness and honor, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got another life-changing story coming your way tomorrow. Let's get started. In the heart of Knoxville, Tennessee, nestled on a quiet corner, sits David's Corner Market, a small convenience store that's become a familiar part of the neighborhood for over 18 years. David Harper, 46, is the man behind the counter every single day. From the moment the sun rises, David is already there, unlocking the door, setting up shelves, and greeting regulars with a smile that's both warm and familiar. He's built a life in that little shop, and in many ways, it's all he's ever known. David's story isn't just about running a store, it's about carrying on a legacy. His father, John Harper, who passed away 5 years ago after a tough battle with cancer, was the original owner of the market. John was a man of deep integrity, a man who lived by the principle of doing what's right, no matter the cost. "You always do the right thing, son, even if it means you lose something," John used to tell him. And David took those words to heart, not just in running the business, but in how he lived his life. Since his father's passing, David has kept the store running as a way of honoring him. The aisles still smell the same, the shelves are still stacked the way his father left them, and the people who walk through the door are greeted with the same kindness. Life is quiet, predictable. But at 46, David has come to accept that peace comes with its own kind of heaviness. He's content, yes, but sometimes, the weight of living up to his father's expectations feels like an anchor. Little does he know, everything is about to change. It was just another crisp fall morning when the unexpected happened. David was behind the counter, wiping down the glass of the front door, as the first customers of the day began to trickle in. The bell above the door jingled, announcing the arrival of a man David hadn't seen before. He was an elderly figure, hunched slightly, with a worn military jacket that had clearly seen better days. His steps were slow, deliberate, and his face, weathered by time, had an air of quiet strength about it. The man shuffled toward the counter, and David greeted him with a nod. The stranger's eyes were cloudy, the years having dimmed what was once a sharp focus, but there was something in his gaze that made David pause for a moment. The man placed a few items on the counter, canned goods, a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, but as David rang them up, a look of worry spread across the man's face. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a few crumpled bills, but when he looked at the total, his face fell. "I'm sorry," the man said, his voice low and shaky. "I don't have enough. My check hasn't come in yet. I'll have to put these back." David could see the shame in the old man's eyes. He wasn't used to asking for help, and the frustration of his situation was clear. Before David could say anything, however, a man standing in line behind the elderly veteran, dressed in an expensive suit, suddenly spoke up, his voice dripping with disdain. "Really?" The businessman scoffed. "You can't even afford a few groceries. You're holding up the line. Maybe you should leave if you can't pay like everyone else." The words hit David like a punch to the gut. He could see the veteran shrinking, trying to gather what little dignity he had left. The businessman's voice rang out again, demanding that the veteran leave the store, but David couldn't let this go. Not now, not here. He stood up from behind the counter, his hand resting on the edge, and looked the businessman straight in the eye. "Actually," David said, his voice calm but firm, "he's not paying today. It's on me. And this isn't charity. It's respect. He served this country, and that's worth more than any amount of money." The businessman's face reddened, his jaw clenched. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. With a huff of frustration, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the store, leaving a tense silence behind. David turned back to the veteran, who was still standing there, eyes wide in disbelief. "Don't worry about it," David said, offering a soft smile. "I've got you covered." And just like that, in one simple act, everything shifted. The next few hours passed in a blur for David. He returned to his usual routine, restocking shelves, ringing up customers, and sweeping the floor, but something felt different. As the morning wore on, he couldn't shake the image of the elderly veteran standing in front of him, looking so grateful and humbled. The man had thanked him, of course, but there was more in his eyes, something deeper, a story untold. By lunchtime, David had almost forgotten about the incident. It was just another day. But then, as the door swung open, a woman walked in with a piece of paper in her hand. She was in her mid-30s, dressed casually but with a serious look on her face. She walked directly up to the counter and placed a folded photograph and a business card in front of David. "Are you David Harper?" she asked. David looked up from the register, surprised by the woman's sudden appearance. "Yes, that's me. Can I help you?" She nodded, pushing the photo toward him. "This is Jack Turner. He's the man you helped this morning. He wanted me to give this to you." David's heart skipped a beat. Jack Turner, the elderly veteran from earlier. He hadn't realized that this was the beginning of something much bigger than a simple transaction. David picked up the photo, his eyes scanning the black and white image of a much younger Jack, standing tall in military uniform, a confident smile on his face. The photo was worn, faded with age, but it told a story of someone who had once been strong, brave, and full of life. Along with the photo was a business card, with a number on the back, a military contact. The woman noticed David's confusion and explained, Jack was a war hero. He saved the lives of several Marines in a battle years ago. He didn't want to make a fuss about it, but he wanted you to know. He's been living quietly ever since. And, well, he's grateful for your kindness today. David sat in stunned silence. His mind raced as he absorbed the weight of the moment. Jack Turner wasn't just any elderly man who had fallen on hard times. He had lived through unimaginable experiences and had quietly carried the burden of his past. He had never asked for attention or sympathy, just a simple act of respect, which David had unknowingly given him. But now, as he held the photograph, David realized that sometimes the smallest actions can reveal the deepest truths. And his small act of kindness had, in fact, set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. The next few days were a whirlwind of unexpected events. David found himself thinking about Jack Turner constantly, about the man he had helped without knowing anything about his past, about the unspoken weight that had been carried by those weathered eyes. The photograph and the business card stayed on the counter, a constant reminder of that fateful morning. It wasn't just about groceries anymore. It was about something deeper, something David hadn't even realized he was searching for, purpose. As the days went by, the story of David's act of kindness spread like wildfire. The local news caught wind of the incident, and soon, social media was flooded with posts about the generous store owner who had stood up for a veteran. People praised David for his selflessness, his unwavering belief in doing what was right. But not everyone was pleased. A small group of critics emerged, voicing their displeasure over David's actions. Some claimed he had made a spectacle of the situation, others argued that he had overstepped his bounds. David wasn't naive. He knew that helping a man who couldn't pay for his groceries wasn't going to come without its detractors. But what bothered him most was that some people didn't understand the deeper principle of it all. They saw a transaction, not a human connection. They didn't see the respect he had shown Jack, not out of pity, but out of honor. Yet, in the midst of the criticism, there were those who stood by David. The support from the local community was overwhelming. People shared their own stories of military service and the sacrifices veterans made. Some even came into the store specifically to meet David, to shake his hand and thank him for what he had done. It was clear that his actions had resonated with them on a much deeper level than he had anticipated. David had never been one to care much for praise or attention, but as the days passed, something within him began to shift. He started to realize that doing the right thing, even when it's not popular, often means standing alone. But that loneliness, that moment of quiet resistance, was where true character was forged. And for the first time in a long while, David felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. But the story was far from over. What David didn't know was that Jack's past was about to come rushing back into his life in a way that no one could have predicted. The quiet, unassuming life he had built in the corner of that little store was about to be shaken to its core. And it all started with a simple phone call. The morning after the story hit its peak, David received an unexpected delivery at his store, a package that looked ordinary from the outside, but as soon as he opened it, his heart skipped a beat. Inside was an old, crinkled photograph of Jack Turner, this time showing him with a group of soldiers in their military uniforms, standing proud and smiling in front of a banner that read Griggs Ridge, a battle to remember. The photo was clearly taken during the Vietnam War, and Jack, younger and more vibrant, stood tall among his comrades, a man whose life had been forged in the heat of battle. But that wasn't all. Along with the photograph was a military business card with a number scribbled on the back. A note was tucked underneath the photo, written in bold, jagged handwriting, "Call this number, and you'll understand why this is so important." David's hands trembled as he looked at the photo. He had known that Jack's past wasn't just the quiet life of a retired man, but he hadn't realized how deep and impactful it really was. Jack had served his country, and from the look of the photograph, he had done so with incredible courage and conviction. Curious and unsettled, David did what the note suggested. He picked up the phone, dialed the number, and waited. The phone rang once, twice, then a voice on the other end picked up, its tone formal but warm. "This is Colonel Samuel Henson," the voice said. "I'm with the United States Marine Corps. May I speak with David Harper?" David's heart pounded in his chest. "This is David Harper. Who is this?" Colonel Henson's voice softened. "I wanted to personally thank you for your kindness to Jack Turner. You may not know this, but Jack is a war hero. During the Battle of Griggs Ridge, he single-handedly saved the lives of 14 Marines, including my own. He's a man of incredible bravery and honor, and what you did for him yesterday meant more than you'll ever know." David was speechless. Jack, the quiet, humble man he had helped, was a hero. The weight of the words hung in the air as the colonel continued. "I wanted you to know, Mr. Harper, that Jack has never wanted recognition for what he did. But I think, after all these years, he deserves to know that people still remember him. And, because of your kindness, we are now making sure the world knows Jack's story." David sat back, overwhelmed. The man he had simply helped with a few groceries was far more than he could have ever imagined. And now, his simple act of respect was about to have ripple effects that would change his life, and Jack's, forever. David stood there, humbled, as the Marines saluted him. The weight of the plaque felt heavier than he could have ever imagined, but in that moment, he realized something profound. What had started as a small act of kindness had sparked a chain reaction, a ripple of respect, gratitude, and recognition. And for the first time in his life, David realized that sometimes, doing the right thing was about more than just following the rules. It was about honoring what truly mattered. He had been a part of something much greater than he could have ever understood when he first stepped up for Jack Turner. And in that moment, he knew he had made a difference, one that would last a lifetime. The next morning, as David was opening up the store, something incredible happened. A low rumble of engines echoed through the quiet street, growing louder with each passing second. He stepped outside to see a convoy of military vehicles lined up in front of David's corner market. More than 20 Marines, dressed in full uniform, stepped out of the trucks and lined up on the sidewalk. At the front was Colonel Samuel Henson, the same man who had called him the day before. David stood frozen for a moment, his heart racing. What on earth was going on? Why were these soldiers here? Colonel Henson approached David, extending his hand with a respectful smile. "Mr. Harper, we owe you an enormous thank you," the colonel said. "You may not realize it, but your act of kindness towards Jack Turner yesterday was not just an act of goodwill. It was an act of honoring a hero. And today, we're here to honor you." David's mind was spinning. What had he done that was worthy of such an honor? He had only acted out of respect for an elderly man who had fallen on hard times. But here they were, military personnel standing before him, some of them saluting in acknowledgement of his actions. Colonel Henson continued, "Jack Turner is a war hero. He saved the lives of 14 of my men during the Battle of Griggs Ridge. That battle was brutal, and many lives were lost. But Jack was the reason we made it through. We all owe him our lives." David felt his chest tighten, the weight of the colonel's words settling on him. Jack was a hero. A true hero. The quiet, humble man he'd helped with groceries had single-handedly changed the course of a battle, saving the lives of men like Colonel Henson. Colonel Henson paused for a moment, glancing at the Marines standing behind him. Then, he turned back to David, his voice softer now. "Because of you, Mr. Harper, Jack has received the recognition he deserves. And because of you, we are here today to say thank you. You gave him something he hasn't had in years, respect." One by one, the Marines entered David's corner market, buying small items, but more importantly, expressing their gratitude. Each Marine shook David's hand, thanking him not only for what he had done for Jack, but for what he had done for all of them. David couldn't remember the last time he had been so moved. Then, Colonel Henson handed David a plaque, engraved with the words, "In recognition of David Harper for his honorable support and respect toward our veterans." The colonel placed it in David's hands, a symbol of something far bigger than a simple grocery transaction. The days that followed were a blur of emotions for David. His store had become the center of attention, not just locally but across the country. News outlets had picked up the story, and soon, David's act of kindness was being shared by people everywhere. Messages of support flooded in from veterans, civilians, and even strangers, all thanking him for showing what true respect and humanity look like. His humble little store, once just a quiet neighborhood corner shop, was now a symbol of integrity and honor. But it wasn't just the media attention that left David stunned. It was the people. The Marines who had visited his store, those who had shaken his hand and saluted him, had left a lasting impression on him. Every time David passed the counter, he would glance at the plaque Colonel Henson had given him, a daily reminder of the profound effect his simple decision had made. What touched him the most, however, was Jack Turner's story. A man who had spent years in the shadows, never seeking praise, finally had the recognition he deserved. Jack wasn't just a veteran, he was a hero, and now the world knew it. And in some strange way, David felt like he had played a part in bringing Jack's dignity back into the light. Then, one afternoon, Jack walked into David's corner market again, his slow but steady steps carrying him toward the counter. David looked up, meeting his eyes. This time, there was no shame, no hesitation. Just gratitude. Jack smiled, a smile that seemed to stretch across the years of hardship and sacrifice. "I never expected anything like this," Jack said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "But you, son, you've given me something I thought I'd never have again." David nodded, his throat tight. He hadn't done it for the recognition. He hadn't done it for the plaque, or the news stories, or the public accolades. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. But now, seeing Jack stand before him, knowing that this simple act had restored a piece of his humanity, David realized that sometimes the smallest gestures can have the most profound impact. As Jack left the store that afternoon, David watched him walk away, his shoulders a little straighter, his head held a little higher. It was then that David fully understood the power of respect, the power to change a life, to heal wounds, and to restore dignity to those who had given so much. And as the door swung shut behind Jack, David smiled to himself. Life had a way of surprising him when he least expected it, but one thing was for certain: he would never again underestimate the power of doing the right thing, no matter how small or simple it seemed. For sometimes, the greatest acts of heroism were the ones done quietly, in the humblest of places. The story of David and Jack is a powerful reminder that small acts of kindness can create ripples that change the course of lives. It teaches us that respect and dignity are not just words, they are actions that, when given freely, can have a profound impact on others. David didn't seek recognition for helping Jack, he simply did what he felt was right. And in doing so, he helped restore a man's honor, a hero's worth, and a community's sense of respect for the sacrifices made by those who served. The moral of the story is clear: doing the right thing is often harder than it seems, and it may not always come with immediate rewards. But when we stand up for what is just, even when it's difficult, we create a lasting impact. In a world that often seems focused on self-interest, it's easy to forget that kindness and respect are the threads that hold us all together. David's decision to help a stranger that morning, simply out of respect, led to a change that neither he nor Jack could have foreseen. In the end, integrity and compassion are what define us, and they have the power to transform not only individual lives, but entire communities. If this story moved you, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.